Have you ever stood alone in a forest so immense, shouting would never bring an echo back? Where the canopy is woven so tight the ground lives in twilight. When night falls, the darkness is a physical weight, pressing against your skin. People come to Montana for the peaks, the rivers, the promise of wild freedom. They don't know what the wilderness truly holds. They don't understand why we have a rule about calls after dark. My name is Elias Vance. I spent 18 seasons with Montana Fish, wildlife and parks in the Northwest District, the deep woods around Flathead, the glacier backcountry, 3 million acres, most without roads or people. We have grizzlies, wolves, cougars, land that can kill you in 100 quiet ways. And there is one thing more, something you won't find in any manual, the Midnight Protocol. I learned it my first week. My trainer was Clara Reed, 28 years in service, worn and silent. We were driving back when my radio hissed alive at 11:51 p.m., Unit 22. Distress call from the Swan Range. Lost hiker requesting immediate aid. Clara reached over and switched it off. What are you doing? Someone's in trouble. It's nearly midnight. That's when they need us most. We do not answer calls after midnight. She said it plainly, like stating snow is cold. Not here, not without confirmed visual contact. I argued. A lost hiker is an emergency. Clara pulled over, killed the engine. In the sudden quiet, I heard wind in the firs and something else. A far-off sound that could have been a beast or something pretending to be one. You're green, so listen once. Closely, she said, turning to me. For 30 years, this district has a pattern. Between midnight and 4 a.m., we get distress calls. Lost hikers, injured climbers. The voices sound real. They sound scared. But here's what happens when we go. She held up a finger. We find nothing at the coordinates. A second finger. We find something that was once a person but isn't now. A third finger. Or we don't return at all. I called it insane. Ignoring people who might be dying? I'm saying whatever makes those calls isn't people. Not anymore. She started the truck. In '98, we lost 2 rangers on a midnight call. Found them 3 days later, 5 miles off course, hanging from trees they couldn't have climbed. The coroner said they'd been dead a week. But we spoke to them on the radio the night they vanished. Heard them screaming. Heard something else screaming with them. Her eyes held a truth that stopped my protest. So we let them die. The ones who call after midnight are already gone, Elias. Or they were never human. Going after them just increases the count. We have procedures, she explained. A call after midnight gets logged. We gather details. We wait for first light. If it's real, we find them in the sun. If it's not, she didn't finish. Over the next months, I learned the other unwritten rules passed from ranger to ranger. Rule 1. Never answer midnight to 4 calls without direct visual confirmation. Rule 2. If you hear your name spoken in the woods after dark, do not acknowledge it. Do not turn. Rule 3. Find abandoned camp with gear still laid out. Touch nothing. Mark it, retreat, report at dawn. Rule 4. Never follow animal trails that shift from 4 prints to 2 or 2 to 4. Turn back immediately. Rule 5. Meet someone who won't look you in the eye, who keeps their face averted. Do not approach. Leave quickly. Rule 6. Trust your gut over your training. If a place feels wrong in a way you can't name, that feeling is your best manual. Rule 7. Some zones on our maps have tiny red circles. These areas are closed after sundown. No excuses. The circles don't appear on public charts. We don't explain them. I thought it was superstition. Old-timers clinging to ghost stories. Then I got my first midnight call. It was late October, 3 months in. I was on a solo patrol in the Swan Range. At 12:18 a.m., my radio crackled. Help me? A woman's voice gasping. Please, I'm hurt. I can't move. I grabbed the mic. This is Ranger Vance. What's your location? I don't know. I fell. It's so dark. I hear water, a stream. Please, I'm bleeding. Please come. Every fiber of my EMT training screamed to respond. But Clara's words echoed. Never answer. What's your name? Silence. Then, Anya. Anya Petrov. Please. It hurts so much. Anya, stay calm. Describe what you see. Just trees and eyes. I see eyes in the dark moving around me. Please hurry. My training said go. The rules said wait. I made the worst choice. I compromised. I drove toward the last known trailhead near Jewel Basin. I wouldn't go in. I'd just get close, use the spotlight, see from a safe distance. It seemed reasonable. The lot held one vehicle, a green Jeep with Oregon plates. I ran the tags. Registered to an Anya Petrov from Portland. My chest went cold. Maybe it was real. Maybe I could save a life. I took my gear and stood at the forest's edge. These were ancient, never-cut trees, the kind where you step 10 feet off the path and the world swallows you. Anya! I called. Anya Petrov. This is Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. I'm at the trailhead. Can you hear me? A moment of nothing. Then, from deep within the woods, yes, I hear you. Please. I'm so scared. They're getting closer. Who's getting closer? I don't know. They look like people, but they move incorrectly. Their limbs bend wrong. Please help. Against every warning, I stepped onto the trail, just far enough to sweep the light. The beam cut the black. No, Anya. Keep talking. I'm trying to find you. I see your light. I'm north, maybe a quarter mile. There's a rock that looks like a sleeping bear. Hurry. Please hurry. I knew that rock. I'd passed it in training. It was accessible. Maybe this was legitimate. I went deeper, light swinging ahead. My radio hissed with Anya's voice guiding me, urging me on. The trees thickened. The path faded. My GPS said I was half a mile in. The rock should be right ahead. Then I saw her, a figure beside the stone, feminine, in hiking clothes. Her back was to me, head down, arms limp. Anya. She didn't turn, didn't move, just stood, perfectly still. I moved closer, hand on my radio. Something felt off. Her posture was too rigid. And closer. Her clothes seemed faded, the style from another decade. Anya, can you hear me? The figure's head tilted, but she didn't face me. When she spoke, the voice came not from her, but from the forest around me, from several directions at once. I can't hear you, Elias. I can always hear you. I have no words
She
for
knew
what
my
I saw.
name.
It had
Ruled
Anya
to
Petrov's
screamed
face.
in my skull.
I
I'd
seen
seen
her
her
backing
license
away,
photo.
light
This was
fixed
her.
on her, but
That's
everything
when she
else was
turned.
wrong. The neck bent at sick angles. The shoulders sat uneven, as if the bones beneath had been scrambled. And the eyes were solid black. No white, no iris, just depthless dark that reflected my beam back like an animal's. Don't leave, it said in Anya's voice, in my radio speaker, in a chorus slightly out of sync. I need help. You came to help. Don't leave me again. I ran. I crashed through brush, branches clawing my face, my light jerking wildly as I fled for trail. Behind me, I heard it following, not running. A rapid, clicking sound, like dry sticks snapping over and over. I reached my truck, slammed the door, locked it, knowing locks meant nothing. I sat with the engine running, high beams flooding the trailhead, watching the tree line. Nothing emerged, but I saw movement in the shadows, shapes almost human flickering at the edge of the light. And from my radio, still on my belt, came Anya Petrov's voice. Why did you leave? I'm still here. I'm still hurt. Please come back. I threw the radio onto the passenger seat and drove. I didn't stop until I reached the station 30 miles away. Clara was there, finishing reports. She took one look at me and knew. Midnight call. I nodded, speechless. You went after it. Another nod. She poured coffee, sat me down, and waited for my story. When I finished, she was quiet a long time. Anya Petrov vanished on that trail 8 years ago. She finally said, We never found a body. Her car was at the trailhead. Her pack was on the path. No, Anya. She paused. We gotten calls in her voice at least 10 times since. Different rangers, same story. Whatever's out there, it's using what's left of her. Using her echo. What is it? We don't know. Something old. Something that was perhaps human once and became something else. She looked at me gravely. Did it know your name? Yes. Then you're marked. It'll call for you again. Maybe not for months, maybe years, but it will use your name. When it does, you don't answer. You don't react. You pretend you heard nothing. She handed me a small leather pouch. Keep this. Sage and sweet grass from a Salish elder. Might not help, but it can't hurt. I took it, feeling foolish but too terrified not to. Why don't we warn people? Close those areas. We do warn them in our way. We mark hazard zones. We enforce rules. We do what we can. But how do you tell someone, don't hike here because something wearing stolen faces might take you? How do you put that on a sign? She shook her head. The wild is dangerous. People accept that. But this is different. Something that shouldn't be. The moment we officially admit it exists, everything changes. So we follow the rules and hope it's enough. That was 9 years ago. Since then, I've had 4 more midnight calls. Each time, I followed protocol. Each time I lived, but I've watched other rangers, good rangers, break the rules and pay. 2 years back, we found a ranger named Tomas hanging from a pine near Lake McDonald. He'd answered a midnight call alone. The rope was braided human hair. DNA from 13 missing people was in that braid. Last year, a trainee named Jenna disappeared after a call near the Chinese wall. We found what remained of her 3 months later, scattered across 10 miles of wilderness. Her parts were arranged in a pattern that made anyone who saw it feel a deep, primal wrongness, as if it was a message our conscious mind couldn't read. But our oldest brain understood perfectly. The calls continue. Sometimes voices we know. Missing hikers, dead rangers, people gone for decades. Sometimes voices we don't know, but they know our names, our fears. Sometimes, worst of all, it's the voice of someone we know is safe at home. And we must resist as we hear them beg in our speakers. We follow the rules. We don't answer after midnight. We honor the red circles. We work in daylight and retreat from the dark. But sometimes, alone at the station late, I hear my radio hiss though it's powered off, and I hear voices say my name. Different voices, same message. Elias, we're still here. We're still waiting. You'll answer eventually. Everyone answers. They're patient. They have endless time. And they know that eventually, circumstance will force someone to break. A real emergency. A child in danger. Someone we cannot abandon. That's what they wait for. That's their strategy. After my encounter, Clara mentored me in the unspoken parts of the job. Over coffee and whitefish one morning, she unfolded a topographic map covered in hand-drawn notes. The red circles, she said, pointing to dozens of marks. Each is a place of repeated incidents, disappearances, impossible calls, rangers who came back altered. I studied it. The circles clustered around certain features, deep ravines, old mining sites, places where water systems converged. What makes these spots different? We're not certain. Tribal elders say these are places where the veil between worlds is thin, places traditionally avoided. The mining boom, all that digging, blasting, maybe they disturbed something. Maybe they woke something up. She traced a cluster near the Bob Marshall Wilderness. This area is the worst. We've lost 12 rangers here. The last was 6 years ago. A veteran named Robert Hayes. 30 years experience. He knew every rule. Then one night, he got a call from his son. His real son. Camping near the Chinese wall with friends. Said something was circling their camp. Making noises no animal should make. What did he do? What any father would do. He broke protocol. Went in after midnight. No backup. We found his truck. Found his gear scattered for 2 miles along a trail. Never found Robert. She paused. But we still get calls in his voice. Usually around this season, late fall when staffing is light. You're saying it knew how to make him break. Exactly. These things, whatever they are, they learn. They watch us. They learn our patterns, our weaknesses. They know love overrides fear. They know duty drives us. They use it. She folded the map. Robert's son quit camping, moved to Portland, won't return to Montana. Last I heard, he still gets calls on his phone sometimes late at night. His father's voice, begging him to come find him. That conversation stayed with me. I started keeping my own log, comparing incidents with old records. What I found was unsettling. The midnight calls had been happening for a century, but they'd evolved. Early reports told of strange lights and voices leading trappers astray. Simple lures. By the 1950s, with early radios, the phenomenon grew sophisticated. Calls mimic specific people. Rangers began forming the first rules. The 1980s saw a spike. The things adapted, learned to manipulate technology. Now, in the 2020s, they use cell signals, GPS, social media scraps. They know our names before we enter the woods. They know our families. They learn faster than we adapt. I showed my findings to Clara. She listened, unsurprised. You're seeing what I've seen for years. Whatever's out there is smart and patient. It can wait decades for the right moment, the right person to crack. She refilled her coffee. You know what frightens me most? We don't know if it's one being or many, a single intelligence or multiple predators competing. How do we fight it? We don't fight. We contain. We follow the rules. We keep people out of the red zones as much as possible. The way to maximize loss is to charge into the dark every time something cries for help. Her words were a cold anchor in a sea of chaos. The rules weren't superstition. They were a containment strategy for something we could not defeat, only hope to delay. The wilderness, I was learning, was not just a place. It was a patient, intelligent opponent that remembered every loss and used it against us. Winter came early. By November, deep snow isolated the high country. Most seasonal staff were gone. A skeleton crew remained. That's when things escalated. Equipment began failing. Radios switched themselves on at night. Cycling channels, picking up voices speaking tangled languages or English with words in senseless order. GPS units showed phantom coordinates. When we checked at dawn, we'd find nothing or we'd find unnatural things. Stone spirals, circles of dead trees, all pointing inward. Once, a campsite that looked decades old with rotted gear, but a serial number on a rusted stove traced to equipment bought 4 months prior. The midnight calls intensified. Every night, multiple locations, multiple voices, all between midnight and 4. We logged them, ignored them. It wore on us. A young ranger named Leo started cracking. He'd answer the calls, try to talk the victims through it. We told him to stop, that he was feeding it information, giving it more data about us, about our procedures. He couldn't help himself. The psychological toll of listening and doing nothing was breaking him down. Then came December 14th. I was at the main station on paperwork when every radio in the building activated at once. All frequencies, emergency bands, police, even civilian channels, broadcasting the same thing, a child weeping, not screaming, the heartbroken, terrified sobs of a child lost in the black. It continued for 5 minutes, stopped, then started again, louder. The cycle repeated for an hour. Each time, the crying grew more desperate, more impossible to ignore. My hands shook. Every parental instinct screamed to act. Clara entered, pale. It's never been this coordinated, this aggressive. What's it trying to do? What it always tries. Make us break. Force a response. She gripped my shoulder. Elias, no matter what, you do not go out there. You do not answer. The power died. Emergency lights cast a room in red, and through every radio, now distorted, came a voice I knew. My son's voice. Dad? Dad, I'm scared. It's dark and I lost the trail. Please come get me. Please, Dad. I'm so cold. My son was in Bozeman, safe in his dorm. But the voice was perfect. His voice exactly, down to the slight crack when he cried. The way he said, Dad, not father, when frightened. Dad, please. Something's following me. I hear in the trees. Please hurry. I stood, reached for my keys. Clara blocked me. That is not your son. I know, but what if? There is no what if. Call him. Now. I pulled out my cell. No signal. Of course. Jammed. Isolated. Then I'll drive to Bozeman. You'll drive 2 hours on a radio voice? That's what it wants. You leave, something happens here. We're understaffed. Someone else breaks. She was right. I knew it. But listening to my son beg, while I did nothing felt like dying. Clara used a landline, called Bozeman PD, asked for a welfare check. The officer agreed. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Signal was back. Dad. My real son's voice, sleepy. Why did campus police just knock on my door? They said you asked them to check on me. The relief was a physical wave. Sorry, bud. Had a scare. Needed to know you were safe. I'm fine. I was sleeping. What kind of scare? Just work. Go back to bed. Love you. Love you too, Dad. You're weird. He hung up. I sat drained. Through the radio, the other voice, the false one, made a sound like laughter or wind through bare branches. Then silence. Power returned. Radios went quiet. Clara sat across from me. Too close. It knew exactly which voice would break me, and now it knows it failed. It'll try something else next time. Something worse. She looked exhausted. This is escalating. It's testing our defenses. I think we're going to find out why soon. She was right. 3 days later, Leo didn't show. No answer on his cell. His cabin was empty. Then at 12:08 a.m., his voice came over the radio. This is Ranger Leo. Need backup at Kintla Lake. Multiple injuries here. Send everyone. Clara grabbed the mic. Leo, what's your status? Are you hurt? Negative. I'm okay, but I've got 6 hikers trapped by avalanche debris. 3 critical. Need medevac and personnel now. This is real. Confirm your location. Kintla Lake, North Shore, about 2 miles from the station. Please hurry. Clara looked at me. The Kintla station's been closed since October. Snow's too deep. No avalanche activity reported. So it's not him, or it is him and he's already taken. Either way, we don't go until daylight. Saying it made me sick. If Leo was really out there, we were abandoning him. The voice continued for hours, begging, giving precise medical details, GPS coordinates. We logged it all, waited for dawn. At first light, we took a helicopter to Kintla. The area was under 6 feet of untouched snow. No avalanche. No tracks. No sign of humans. We checked the coordinates. Nothing but frozen wilderness. We never found Leo. His voice still calls sometimes on understaffed nights in bad weather when conditions are perfect for a tragic accident. After that, we instituted new protocols. Mandatory buddy system. No solo patrols, ever. Check-ins every 2 hours. If missed, a team goes at dawn, not before. Cold, but necessary. Strangely, visitor disappearances haven't spiked. Whatever's out there focuses on us. The Rangers. The ones who know. Like it's personal. Like we're not just prey, but opponents in a long game. Clara retired last year. Moved to New Mexico. Somewhere flat and open. Before leaving, she gave me her maps, her journals. It's your duty now, she said. Train the new ones. Teach the rules. Keep people alive as long as you can. At her truck, she looked back at the mountains. And Elias, don't stay too long. This job costs more than they pay. I gave it 30 years. Don't give it more than you must. I'm still here. Still following the rules. Still listening to midnight calls from voices that shouldn't be. And every night, I wonder if tonight will be the night I can't ignore it. The emergency I can't walk away from. The voice I can't resist. Because they're patient. They're learning. And eventually, they'll find the perfect combination. The exact voice. The one situation where the rules shatter. That's when someone else becomes a voice on the radio. Calling for help that will never arrive. The containment was holding. but it felt increasingly fragile, like a dam with countless hairline cracks, each new incident widening them just a little more. The thing that haunted me wasn't just the calls. It was the intelligence behind them, the adaptation, the way it learned our weaknesses, not as a force of nature, but as a strategist. We were in a war of attrition against an enemy we couldn't see, fought with the only weapon we had, stubborn, terrified, disciplined. Clara's replacement was a man named David, transferred from Yellowstone. Great resume, completely unprepared. I briefed him, showed him the maps, explained the rules. He listened politely. I saw in his eyes he thought it was stress-induced folklore. I appreciate the local lore, he said, but every park has its stories, usually a rational explanation if you look. These aren't stories. They're documented events, documented by rangers alone under extreme duress. I'll follow your protocols as procedure, but I won't endorse supernatural causes when we should seek practical solutions. I wanted to argue, but what could I say? That would only confirm his theory. I nodded, wished him luck, and kept detailed notes. It took 3 weeks. David was on a solo patrol near the South Fork of the Flathead, against buddy protocol, but he'd insisted. His last check-in was 10:53 p.m., then silence. At midnight, his radio activated. This is Ranger David. Located an injured hiker near Spotted Bear. Male, 30s, possible spinal injury from a fall. Need medevac and backup. Coordinates follow. I grabbed the mic. David, confirm you're at Spotted Bear. Affirmative. With victim now. Conscious. Severe pain. Says he fell 40 feet. Need evac ASAP. It sounded professional. Legitimate. But it was after midnight, and David's voice had a rehearsed quality. David, confirm your identity. What was the last thing we discussed before your patrol? A pause. We discussed my route. You gave me the weather update. Why? That was true, but I'd also mentioned my son's soccer game, a personal detail. David, do I have kids? A longer pause. I don't recall. We've talked a lot. I need to focus on this patient. Are you sending the helicopter or not? Negative. Team at first light. First light? This man could die by first light. The voice rose in frustration. I'm ordering you to send evacuation now. You're not in a position to order anything. And if you were really David, you'd know I told you about my son's game yesterday. You'd know you showed me pictures of your daughter. Silence. Then the voice changed. Still David's, but the inflection shifted. Became something else entirely. Oh, Elias, you're improving. Clara taught you well. The thing laughed. But it doesn't matter. David really is out here. And he really found someone. And by dawn, when you finally come, it will be far too late for either of them. The radio went dead. We staged at Spotted Bear at first light. Went in hard. Found David sitting against a tree, alive but catatonic. Eyes open but vacant. No physical injuries, but his heart raced at 180 beats per minute, like he'd been sprinting for hours. 20 yards away, we found the injured hiker, a department store mannequin, partially buried in snow, posed almost correctly but with limbs subtly wrong, carved into the tree above it. He stayed past midnight. He broke the rules. Now he's ours. We got David to a hospital. Doctors found nothing physically wrong. Psychiatrists diagnosed severe dissociation. He never spoke again, just stared, sometimes making sounds nurses said resembled wind in trees. The administration wanted to shutter operations, but wouldn't acknowledge why. So they compromised: more tech, better radios, satellite phones, GPS trackers, stricter buddy systems, reduced patrols in red zones. All useful, none addressing the core problem. I was promoted to Clara's position. With it came access to older files. Incident reports back to the 1920s. Photos. In some, if you looked close, you saw things in the background. Figures almost human, trees that seemed to watch. And in several photos from different decades, the same woman always at the frame's edge, always slightly blurred. Different era clothing, but the same face, always looking at the camera. I showed them to a retired ranger in his 80s, living in Great Falls. Ah, I remember her, he said. We called her the Watcher. She'd appear after bad events, never close, just observing. He handed back the photos. Story was she was a ranger in territorial days, before statehood. Got lost, found months later alive, but wrong. Spoke unknown languages. Navigated perfectly in total dark. Didn't feel cold. They tried to reintegrate her, but she'd vanished for months. Eventually, she became part of the landscape. You think she's still out there? I know she is. Saw her in '75, after we lost a man in the Bob Marshall, standing on a ridge a mile off, motionless, watching us search. I glanced away, looked back, she was gone. He leaned in, but I don't think she's a threat. I think she's like us, maintaining the boundaries, except she's been at it longer and knows more. How do I find her? You don't. She finds you. If she thinks you need to know, she'll make contact. 2 months later, near the Chinese wall, I saw her, on a rock outcrop 200 yards off, in modern gear, the face from photos. Our eyes met. She gestured, follow, then walked into the trees. Every instinct said trap, but it was daytime. I had comms. This felt different. An invitation, not a lure. I followed, keeping distance. She moved with impossible grace over rough ground. After a mile, she stopped in a clearing and waited. Up close, she appeared native, maybe 30s, but her eyes were wrong. Too pale, too reflective. You're the Watcher. She smiled sadly. Is that what they call me now? I've had many names. Her voice was normal but held an echo, like speech from a deep well. What are you? What you'll become if you stay here too long. What we all become if we give ourselves completely to the woods. She gestured around. This place is older than humanity, Elias Vance. What you call Montana is built on layers of older worlds. In certain places, those layers are thin, permeable. The red circles. Yes, places where boundaries fail, where things that should be separate can touch. The entities you hear, the midnight voices, the mimics, they're refugees, survivors of dead worlds, trapped between states, trying desperately to return a physical form by taking humans. They're not evil any more than a drowning man is evil for pulling others down. They're terrified, and they've been alone longer than your species has existed. Her eyes held mine. Their desperation makes them dangerous, and they're learning. Each encounter teaches them more about how to manipulate your psychology, still following emotions, still listening to midnight calls from voices that shouldn't be. And every night, I wonder if tonight will be the night I can't ignore it. The emergency I can't walk away from. The voice I can't resist. Because they're patient. They're learning. And eventually, they'll find the perfect combination. The exact voice. The one situation where the rules shatter. That's when someone else becomes a voice on the radio. Calling for help that will never arrive. The containment was holding. But it felt increasingly fragile, like a dam with countless hairline cracks, each new incident widening them just a little more. The thing that haunted me wasn't just the calls. It was the intelligence behind them, the adaptation, the way it learned our weaknesses, not as a force of nature, but as a strategist. We were in a war of attrition against an enemy we couldn't see, fought with the only weapon we had. Stubborn, terrified, disciplined. Clara's replacement was a man named David, transferred from Yellowstone. Great resume, completely unprepared. I briefed him, showed him the maps, explained the rules. He listened politely. I saw in his eyes he thought it was stress-induced folklore. I appreciate the local lore, he said, but every park has its stories, usually a rational explanation if you look. These aren't stories. They're documented events. Documented by rangers alone under extreme duress. I'll follow your protocols as procedure, but I won't endorse supernatural causes when we should seek practical solutions. I wanted to argue, but what could I say? That would only confirm his theory. I nodded, wished him luck, and kept detailed notes. It took 3 weeks. David was on a solo patrol near the South Fork of the Flathead, against buddy protocol, but he'd insisted. His last check-in was 10:53 p.m., then silence. At midnight, his radio activated. This is Ranger David. Located an injured hiker near Spotted Bear. Male, 30s, possible spinal injury from a fall. Need medevac and backup. Coordinates follow. I grab the mic. David, confirm you're at Spotted Bear. Affirmative. With victim now. Conscious. Severe pain. Says he fell 40 feet. Need evac ASAP. It sounded professional. Legitimate. But it was after midnight, and David's voice had a rehearsed quality. David, confirm your identity. What was the last thing we discussed before your patrol? A pause. We discussed my route. You gave me the weather update. Why? That was true, but I'd also mentioned my son's soccer game, a personal detail. David, do I have kids? A longer pause. I don't recall. We've talked a lot. I need to focus on this patient. Are you sending the helicopter or not? Negative. Team at first light. First light? This man could die by first light. The voice rose in frustration. I'm ordering you to send evacuation now. You're not in a position to order anything. And if you were really David, you'd know I told you about my son's game yesterday. You'd know you showed me pictures of your daughter. Silence. Then the voice changed. Still David's, but the inflection shifted. Became something else entirely. Oh, Elias, you're improving. Clara taught you well. The thing laughed. But it doesn't matter. David really is out here. And he really found someone. And by dawn, when you finally come, it will be far too late for either of them. The radio went dead. We staged at Spotted Bear at first light. Went in hard. Found David sitting against a tree, alive but catatonic. Eyes open but vacant. No physical injuries, but his heart raced at 180 beats per minute, like he'd been sprinting for hours. 20 yards away, we found the injured hiker, a department store mannequin, partially buried in snow, posed almost correctly but with limbs subtly wrong, carved into the tree above it. He stayed past midnight. He broke the rules. Now he's ours. We got David to a hospital. Doctors found nothing physically wrong. Psychiatrists diagnosed severe dissociation. He never spoke again, just stared, sometimes making sounds nurses said resembled wind in trees. The administration wanted to shutter operations, but wouldn't acknowledge why. So they compromised more tech, better radios, satellite phones, GPS trackers, stricter buddy systems, reduced patrols in red zones. All useful, none addressing the core problem. I was promoted to Clara's position. With it came access to older files. Incident reports back to the 1920s. Photos. In some, if you looked close, you saw things in the background. Figures almost human, trees that seemed to watch. And in several photos from different decades, the same woman always at the frame's edge, always slightly blurred. Different era clothing, but the same face, always looking at the camera. I showed them to a retired ranger in his 80s, living in Great Falls. Ah, I remember her, he said. We called her the Watcher. She'd appear after bad events, never close, just observing. He handed back the photos. Story was she was a ranger in territorial days, before statehood. Got lost, found months later alive, but wrong. Spoke unknown languages. Navigated perfectly in total dark. Didn't feel cold. They tried to reintegrate her, but she'd vanished for months. Eventually, she became part of the landscape. You think she's still out there? I know she is. Saw her in 75, after we lost a man in the Bob Marshall. Standing on a ridge a mile off, motionless, watching us search. I glanced away, looked back. She was gone. He leaned in. But I don't think she's a threat. I think she's like us, maintaining the boundaries. Except she's been at it longer and knows more. How do I find her? You don't. She finds you. If she thinks you need to know, she'll make contact. 2 months later, near the Chinese wall, I saw her, on a rock outcrop 200 yards off, in modern gear, the face from photos. Our eyes met. She gestured, follow, then walked into the trees. Every instinct said trap, but it was daytime. I had comms. This felt different. An invitation, not a lure. I followed, keeping distance. She moved with impossible grace over rough ground. After a mile, She stopped in a clearing and waited. Up close, she appeared native, maybe 30s, but her eyes were wrong. Too pale, too reflective. "You're the Watcher." She smiled sadly. "Is that what they call me now? I've had many names." Her voice was normal but held an echo, like speech from a deep well. "What are you? What you'll become if you stay here too long. What we all become if we give ourselves completely to the woods." She gestured around. "This place is older than humanity, Elias Vance. What you call Montana is built on layers of older worlds. In certain places, those layers are thin, permeable. The red circles. Yes, places where boundaries fail, where things that should be separate can touch. The entities you hear, the midnight voices, the mimics, they're refugees, survivors of dead worlds, trapped between states, trying desperately to return a physical form by taking humans. They're not evil any more than a drowning man is evil for pulling others down. They're terrified, and they've been alone longer than your species has existed." Her eyes held mine. "Their desperation makes them dangerous. You don't stop them, and they're learning. You contain them. Each encounter teaches them more about how to manipulate your psychology, don't answer the lures, your emotions, maintain the borders." She stood. "That's what I do. That's what I've done for longer than memory. And that's what you'll do if you last. Eugene said you were a ranger, that you got lost and came back wrong. Eugene remembers partly. I was never a ranger. That job didn't exist when I made my choice. But I was someone who tried to help people in the wild. And yes, I got lost. And yes, I came back wrong." She looked at her hands. "But I also came back with understanding, knowledge of how to move between worlds. I traded my humanity to become something that could protect others from what's here. Is that what happened to David? Is he becoming like you?" Her face darkened. "No. David's mind shattered. He touched something his psyche couldn't process. He'll never recover. That's the risk you all take. Exposure to things human minds aren't built to handle." She stepped closer. "You're stronger than David. Smarter. More flexible. But you're not invulnerable. Nobody is. Eventually, everyone breaks or transforms. The only two outcomes are those who do this work long enough. Then why keep doing it? Because if we don't, the boundaries collapse entirely. The thin places spread. More people stumble into situations they can't survive. What you're managing now, the calls, the occasional disappearance, that's containment working. Without us, it would be hundreds, thousands." She began to leave. "Follow the rules, Elias Vance. Teach them. And when you can't do this anymore, walk away. Don't make my error. Don't stay so long you become something else entirely. Wait, how do I contact you if I need help?" She looked back. "You don't. I'll know when you need me. The forest tells me everything." Then she was gone, not fading into trees. Simply gone between one blink and the next. I stood there a long time. The thing pretending to be Anya wasn't just a predator. It was a refugee from a dead reality, drowning in non-existence, grabbing at any chance to be real again. That didn't make it less dangerous. If anything, more so, but it changed my understanding. Some borders aren't on any map. They're etched in silence and broken rules. I hiked back, checked in, continued patrol, but everything felt different. The woods felt different, like I'd been shown a hidden layer and now couldn't unsee it. That night, alone, I updated Clara's maps with my notes, added what the Watcher said, and decided 5 more years. No more. 5 years to train rangers, pass on knowledge, help hold the line. Then I'd leave, retire somewhere flat and empty. The Watcher was right. Stay too long and you break or transform. I'd seen breaking. I wasn't ready to learn the cost of transformation. The encounter changed everything. Not the job. Patrols continued, calls persisted, rules stayed. But my understanding of why. I became obsessive about documentation. Every incident logged, cross-referenced with moon phases, solar flares, electromagnetic readings. Patterns emerged. Calls spiked during new moons and geomagnetic storms. Red zones showed consistent EM anomalies. Missing persons clustered near watershed convergences and unusual mineral deposits. Most disturbing, The phenomenon was spreading. Areas safe a decade ago now showed red circle traits. The boundaries were weakening. I brought my data to the new regional director. She listened, studied my maps. "This is thorough," she said, "but I can't close a quarter of the state based on EM readings and historical rates. I'm not asking for closures. I'm asking for resources to study it. Partner with universities. Get geologists, physicists out here. Understand what's happening. And tell them we're investigating the supernatural. The department is under scrutiny after David. The last thing we need is to sound like we believe in ghost stories. These aren't stories. They're unexplained incidents. Which means we need better training, better gear, better mental health support, not paranormal studies." She softened. "I'm approving funds for counseling, more rotations, stricter buddy systems. That's how we keep rangers safe, not chasing anomalies." I left frustrated but unsurprised. Official acknowledgement would never come. Containment would remain informal, dependent on rangers passing whispered knowledge. Winter hit harder. By January, record snows made the backcountry nearly impassable. Visitor traffic vanished. It should have been quiet. Instead, the midnight calls intensified. Every night. Dozens. We logged them, ignored them, tried not to think if one was real. Then came February 7th. I was at the main station with 2 rangers, Paul, a veteran, and Maya, a rookie. We were playing cards, waiting for shift end. At 11:49 p.m., Maya's phone rang. She answered, went white. "It's my sister." She says she's lost near Hungry Horse Reservoir. Her truck's stuck. She can't find her way back. "Where's your sister supposed to be?" I asked. "Home in Missoula. She's a teacher. She has class tomorrow." Maya was already putting on her coat. But that's her voice. She sounds terrified. "Maya, don't." She was out the door before I finished. Paul and I exchanged a look and followed. We couldn't let her go alone. Not after midnight. Not into a potential lure. "Maya, wait." I caught her at the lot. "Call her back. Call her actual number." I tried. Straight to voicemail. Then call her roommate. Verify where she is. She hesitated, dialed. We waited in the bitter cold. "Hey, it's Maya. Is my sister there? Can you?" She stopped. "She's not." "When did she leave?" "Okay, thanks." She lowered the phone, face stricken. She left 4 hours ago. Told her roommate. She was driving to Hungry Horse to photograph the northern lights. Her roommate tried to stop her because of the storm, but she went. My stomach sank. The perfect scenario. A real person really in danger. Calling at the worst time under conditions designed to make us doubt. What do we do? Paul asked quietly. I radioed dispatch. Ranger Vance. Potential legitimate emergency. Requesting helicopter. Search and rescue. All assets. But nobody goes in until first light. That's 6 hours. Maya said she could freeze in 6 hours. And we could all die in the next hour if this is a trap. But what if it's not? What if she needs us and we let her die because of superstition? Tears streamed down her face. She's my only family. I can't. Her phone rang again. Same number. She answered on speaker. Maya. Her sister's voice weak, shivering. Please come. I'm so cold. I can't feel my feet. There's something in the trees. It keeps getting closer. Please, Maya. Please. Then a sound, a wet, tearing noise, and a scream cut short. Silence. Maya ran for her truck. Paul and I physically restrained her. Let me go. She needs help. She's dying. If we go now, we all die. I said, hating the words. We wait for dawn. We go with full support. That's how we save people. There won't be anything to save by dawn. She fought, desperate and strong. You're killing her. Paul's radio crackled. We froze. This is Hungry Horse Dam security. We have a situation. Young woman just stumbled into our facility. Says she got lost in the woods trying to photograph the aurora. Requesting medical for hypothermia. I grabbed the radio. Description? Late 20s, dark hair, glasses, University of Montana jacket. Says her name is Chloe. Her sister's a ranger. Wants us to call. Maya stopped fighting. Stared at the radio. That's her. That's my sister. She's safe. I said. She found the dam. She's okay. Maya sank to her knees in the snow, sobbing with relief. Paul and I watched the forest, listening. From deep in the trees came a sound like wind or laughter or something else. They'd learned. They knew Maya's sister was out there. Knew her voice. Knew how to simulate a scenario to force us to break. The only reason it failed was luck, Chloe stumbling onto the dam. I helped Maya up, got her inside, made coffee while we waited for confirmation. Mild hypothermia, frostbite on toes. But she'd live. Dam security took her to the hospital. Maya met her there. But the incident shook us. The things in the forest were evolving tactics faster than we could adapt. How long until they succeeded? The next morning, I visited the retired ranger again. They almost got one last night. I said. He stared out his window. You want to know if it's getting worse. If you're losing containment. Yes. Been watching these cycles 60 years. Periods of activity, then quiet. But each active phase is worse. More sophisticated. More aggressive. Wider spread. He turned to me. The Watcher told you they're refugees, right? Trying to claw back. Yes. Well, here's what you might not know. There are more of them now. Many more. Like something's opened. Barriers are down, and they're flooding through in numbers we've never seen. He leaned forward. Your 5-year plan? Make it 3. I don't think this job will be survivable much longer. If it gets that bad, we'll have to tell people the truth. Acknowledge it. And then what? Panic? People avoiding all wilderness? Or thrill seekers flooding the red zones for encounters? He shook his head. Containment works because it's quiet. The moment you go public, it breaks. He was right. We were trapped between impossible choices. Maintain the lie and watch people vanish, or tell the truth and risk chaos. 3 months later, I decided. I'd been at it 18 years total. 14 since the Anya call. I'd trained dozens, updated protocols, held the line as best I could, but he was right. It was worsening. The red circles spread. The calls grew more convincing. And I felt fault lines in myself. The same cracks I'd seen in David before he broke. I put in for retirement, bought a small place in Billings, flat and far from deep woods. On my last night at the station, packing my office, the Watcher appeared in the doorway. You're leaving, she said. I lasted longer than most. You did good work. Train good people. Some will carry on. She entered, studying my maps. But you're right to go. I see the erosion in you. Stay much longer and you break or transform. Better to leave while you're still mostly yourself. Will you keep watching? Helping? I'll do what I can. But I'm not unlimited, Elias. I can't be everywhere. The boundaries are failing in too many places. She met my eyes. Something changed last decade. Something fundamental. I don't know if it's human activity, climate shift, EM pollution, or a natural cycle, but the veils between worlds are tearing faster than ever. Is there any way to stop it? Stop it? No. Slow it? Maybe, if humanity heeded the warning. If people stopped pushing into the deep wild. If we could empty the red zones, let them return to true stillness. She shook her head, but that won't happen. So containment will keep eroding until one day it fails completely. What happens then? Then the woods reclaim what they've been patient about for eons, not with violence, with quiet, persistent dissolution of the lines between what should remain separate. She turned to leave. Enjoy your retirement, Elias Vance. You've earned it, but don't forget what you learned. Geography won't protect you forever. Eventually, nowhere is truly safe. She walked out. Her footsteps faded down the hall. When I checked, she was gone. I finished packing, said goodbye to the night years ago, and drove away from the station for the last time. Work security at community college. The mountains pretend I had a normal career in normal conservation, but I still monitor the reports. The red circles have expanded 18% since I left, for more rangers have vanished. The midnight calls are reported as far east as the Dakotas, as far south as Wyoming. Whatever spreads from Montana's deep wild isn't staying put. And sometimes late at night, my old radio, which I know I shouldn't have kept, crackles alive though it's switched off. Voices I recognize call my name. Voices from rangers who disappeared. From that first encounter with Anya's echo. From people I couldn't save. They're patient. They're learning. And they know where I am. Last week, the current senior ranger for the district, a woman I trained named Sam, called. She wanted advice about an incident near Glacier. I told her what I could, reminded her of the rules, wished her luck. Before we hung up, she said, "Elias, the red zones are growing. We're running out of rangers who believe the rules. New administration thinks it's superstition, wants to cut protocols, increase access for revenue. I don't know how much longer we can hold this." I had no answer. Still don't. The truth is containment was always temporary. A holding action by dedicated people against forces barely understood. We bought decades, but time runs out. I still have Clara's maps, my logs, the Watcher's warnings. Sometimes I think of writing it all down, a record for whoever comes after, whoever must deal with what we couldn't contain. But who would believe a story about voices in the wild? About things wearing familiar faces? About refugees from dead worlds trying to claw back to existence, and think it more than fiction? You might, if you've listened this far, if you feel that crawling sense of recognizing truth in impossible tales. So here's what I tell you, and this is the most important part. If you're ever in Montana's backcountry or any deep wilderness, heed the posted closures. They exist for a physical reason, and sometimes for one you can't see. Don't go alone. And if you're in the wilderness after midnight and hear someone calling for help, someone terrified, someone who sounds like they're dying, who sounds like someone you know, do not answer. Do not go looking. Wait for dawn. Because the rules exist for a reason. Rangers died learning them. We maintained them as long as we could. And if you ignore them, you become just another voice on static, calling for help that never comes, used by something ancient and desperate to lure the next soul. That's the job nobody mentions. That's the truth behind the missing persons files, the unexplained vanishings, the stories of those who walked into the trees and never returned. We tried to protect you. We followed the rules. We held the borders. But those borders are failing, and soon you'll have to follow the rules yourself. My name was Elias Vance. I was a ranger for Montana Fish, wildlife and parks for 18 years. I followed the rules and I survived. Learn from that, because the midnight calls are spreading, and eventually one of them will be for you. This story, this warning, is my final log entry. I'm passing it to you now. Share it. Remember it. Let it be the voice in your ear when the dark feels too heavy and a plea for help sounds too real. The wilderness is not just trees and animals. It is memory. It is patience. And it is hungry. If this account from the edge of understanding held your attention, then do this for me and for everyone who needs to hear it. Tap the like button right now. That simple action tells the algorithm that stories like this matter, that truth isn't always in the daylight, and that warnings in the dark deserve to be amplified. It helps this channel, Winds of Thought, keep sharing these vital, unsettling truths. We are a signal in the static trying to reach you. You're like ensures that signal gets stronger. Then subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because this isn't the only story from the borders of our world. There are more protocols, more rules whispered in places where maps end. By subscribing, you make sure you hear them. You arm yourself with knowledge. You become part of a community that looks into the shadows, not with fear, but with sober understanding. We are better prepared when we listen to those who have stood watch. Most importantly, I need to hear from you. This is not a one-way broadcast. The patterns are changing. Your experience matters. In the comments below, tell me, what is the strangest thing you have ever seen, felt, or heard in the wild? A shape that didn't fit? A sound with no source? A feeling of being called or watched by something that knew your name? Share it. No detail is too small. Your story could be the missing piece that helps someone else connect the dots recognize a pattern, and stay safe. This is how we build a new map together. I read every single comment. This is our ongoing log. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, stay alert, and remember the rules.